As I reflect on a remarkable week at PlayStation, it becomes clear that we are at a pivotal moment in the company's journey. This is a critical junction, not only for the PS5 and the anticipated PS5 Pro, but also for Sony PlayStation as a leading force within the gaming industry. The stakes are high, and if Sony fails to navigate this moment correctly, it risks alienating its core fanbase for good. Let me explain why. Firstly, there was an unprecedented decision to shut down Concord after just barely 2 weeks on the market, a game that reportedly took about 8 years to develop for and likely cost Sony millions, if not hundreds of millions. While Sony did offer refunds to all those who purchased the game, the closure raised eyebrows and concerns about the company's strategic direction. Shortly after, PlayStation launched its new exclusive single-player game, Astrobot, which has quickly become a strong contender for Game of the Year and has sold out worldwide across multiple outlets. Many are calling it one of the best platformers in PlayStation's history. This raises the question, what's next for PlayStation? What type of games can we expect from Sony in the future? There is currently no roadmap for game releases for the PlayStation beyond the end of this year, maybe early 2025, but beyond that we don't really know what's going on. However, that's not the main issue. The point is that Astrobot embodies the essence of what made PlayStation great. At its core, it's an exclusive single-player game, one that allows players to immerse themselves fully, free from the pressures of online modes, microtransactions, or live service elements. It is fun, it's visually stunning, unique in its character design and gameplay, and truly captures the spirit of a PlayStation masterpiece. On the other hand, we have Concord, which bore many of the hallmarks of the live service games currently saturating the marketplace. The game failed to resonate with many gamers, feeling like just another live service title in an already overcrowded space. Its characters lacked depth, the gameplay felt uninspired, generic, and bland. In response, Sony made the bold decision to pull it from sale after only 2 weeks. So where do we go from here? Does Sony continue to gamble on live service games, risking another Concord, or does it return to its roots with more single-player experiences, hoping for another success like Astrobot? The PlayStation community has been vocal across social media about its preference for the future and the kind of games that Sony PlayStation should be investing in. If Sony is committed to pursuing live service games, it might make sense to revive beloved franchises like Killzone, Resistance, SOCOM, or even the Last of Us live service Factions 2 game. These are games that many in the community have been asking for, and there is a strong belief that a large segment of the fanbase would enthusiastically support such a move. However, there is an even greater sentiment among PlayStation fans, a desire for Sony to focus on what made the brand great in the first place, and that is single-player, story-driven games. So what does the PlayStation community really want from Sony in the years ahead? Since the launch of the PS5, we've seen some excellent single-player games. Titles like Stellar Blade, Rise of the Ronin, Returnal, Demon Souls, which is a remake but a superb one, and Final Fantasy have all made their mark, but many of those have come from third-party partnerships or acquisitions such as Housemarque Bluepoint Games. While these titles have been enjoyable, they've not generated the same level of excitement as the PS4 era's standout games. 4 years into the PS5's lifecycle, we have yet to see a major wave of first-party AAA titles from Sony's key studios. Where are those big games? Studios like Insomniac Games have delivered Spider-Man 2, and Guerrilla Games has come out with Horizon Forbidden West. They've all released strong titles, but these were in development for years and came out relatively early in the PS5's lifecycle. Even God of War Ragnarok had a lengthy development cycle before its release. So where are the other AAA titles from Sony's first-party studios? It's worth considering how much of Sony's current strategy under Jim Ryan, which has emphasized live service games, is influencing this lack of major first-party releases from the rest of Sony's studios. Sony remains a market leader, but the path forward is definitely uncertain. The question now is, will Sony continue down the live service road, or will it return to what made PlayStation beloved by millions? Exceptional single-player experiences. The question is, what do you want Sony to do? Let's not forget what happened during the PS3 era. It's hard to believe now, but there was a time when PlayStation was on the brink of collapse. collapse. The PS3 was plagued by a troubled launch, it was too expensive, a very overly confident presentation about the PS3 and getting two jobs, afford a PS3, challenging to develop for initially, and it fell behind its competitors in both sales and public perception. Sony's fall from grace from the monumental success of the PS2 led to missteps that could have spelled disaster for Sony, but slowly and surely things turned around. Games like Uncharted 2 amongst thieves, The Last of Us and God of War 3 reminded the world why PlayStation was a synonymous name with quality. By the end of its life cycle, the PS3 found a measure of success, but it was clear that Sony needed to make significant changes if it was going to reclaim its position at the top. Enter the PS4, a console that would not only save Sony from potential obscurity, but also redefine what it meant to be a PlayStation gamer. The PS4 was a turning point. From day one, it focused on what truly mattered, the games. And not just any games, but narrative-driven, single-player, immaculate experiences that resonated deeply with the players. The titles released during the era were freaking legendary. Think about it. God of War revitalized a classic franchise, giving it a new depth and maturity. The Uncharted series took storytelling in video game to new cinematic heights. The Last of Us Part 2 pushed the boundaries of emotional storytelling and character development in ways we've never seen before. Ghost of Tsushima delivered a breathtaking open-world experience set in feudal Japan, while the infamous games added a unique flavor of the superhero genre to the PlayStation lineup of games. And these are only just a handpick and a selection of the brilliant AAA games we've got from Sony PlayStation on the PS4. These were titles that set the PS4 apart, games that embrace creativity, innovation, and most importantly, a focus on the single-player experience. And it worked. The PS4 didn't just succeed, it dominated. It built a strong, dedicated fanbase that believed in Sony's vision for gaming. Deep, engaging, single-player adventures that you could get lost in for hours and only available on the PlayStation platform. It was the bedrock and the foundation of the PlayStation community, a foundation of excellence that led to the PS4 becoming the market leader by a substantial margin. Then came the PS5, and with it, a change and a shift in strategy. That's left many of us scratching our heads. Instead of doubling down on what made the PS4 era so successful, Sony began to pivot. They changed, became almost unrecognizable. We started to see a shift towards live service and multiplayer-focused experiences, a strategy that caught many long-time fans of PlayStation by surprise. And suddenly it felt like PlayStation was moving away from the very thing that made it great. This change in direction became even more evident with the launch of titles like Concord. And while it is up for debate whether Concord was simply a bad game or a victim of being a product of this new strategy, one thing is clear: it didn't resonate with the core PlayStation audience. It was too focused on the live service model. Did it lack depth and narrative that PlayStation gamers crave? You can be the judge of that, but what's undeniable is the growing sentiment among the PlayStation community, a desire for more single-player experiences. Look at the recent success stories in gaming with Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade, both developed by third-party studios, and they've taken the community by storm. Those games are primarily single-player games and have garnered massive attention and praise, with discussion about the studio's next game and sequels already being talked about. These games are proof that when a great single-player experience is released, fans will flock to it. Just take a look at Astrobot over the last few days. #1 seller worldwide in pretty much most countries, right? These aren't just isolated incidents, they are part of a broader trend. The demand is there and it's strong. The PlayStation community on the whole is crying out for more of what made them fall in love with the console in the first place, and that is rich, narrative-driven, single-player adventures. Games that transport you to other worlds, immerse you in the gripping stories and the tales that the games tell, and they provide experiences that stay with you long after the credits roll. So what does the PlayStation community want from Sony in the years ahead? Well, it's simple. We want more games that focus on the core experiences that define the PS4 era. We want Sony to embrace the creativity and storytelling that made franchises like the God of War games, the Last of Us games, and the Uncharted games so iconic. We want to see more of those deep single-player adventures that capture our imagination and keep us coming back for more. Sony needs to recognize that while live service games have their place, and they definitely do have their place, like Helldivers, for example, and I know Fortnite's done well on multiple platforms, okay, there is a place for them, but you've got to be different, you've got to differentiate, and they shouldn't certainly certainly come at the expense of the single player experiences that are, like I said, the bedrock and foundation of the PlayStation brand. If recent history has taught us anything, it's that there's a huge passionate audience for these types of single player games, and they don't just want them, they demand them. As I mentioned at the beginning, the PlayStation community stands at a bit of a crossroads. We're at a critical point in PlayStation's journey moving forward. Sony has a chance to listen to its fan base and double down on what made the console and the gaming brand so beloved in the first place. The PS4 showed us what's possible when a console focuses primarily on delivering high-quality single-player experiences. Let's hope Sony is listening to PlayStation gamers and delivers on the second half of the PS5 era and beyond. I hope that the future PlayStation lineup of games is filled with more epic single-player, narrative-driven adventures with more unforgettable characters and more games that remind us of why we became PlayStation fans in the first place. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you want from Sony PlayStation? What do you want in terms of games going forward for the second half of the PS5 era and beyond? If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you like this type of content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, but I'll catch you on the next video.